The airline industry has collapsed. Well, almost. It's certainly been through a lot. But the fact that it is still here today shows us how a crisis can actually stimulate growth and prosperity. The COVID-19 pandemic has absolutely grounded the airline industry. It is the biggest crisis aviation has ever faced, but it's also far from the first. Since its start in the 1920s, few industries on the planet have been through as many public crises as the airline industry. Many times over the course of history, highly publicized seismic events have made people all over the world go, I'm not that sure if I want to fly anymore. And yet, we still do. And we will once the pandemic is over. To find out why, let's take a look at some of these events.
So in the late 60s, early 70s, there were cases of airplanes hijacked. So every week, people were hearing about an airliner that has been hijacked for political reasons or for some other reasons. So the industry had to adapt in terms of improving security. And new security measures were in place. This increased the cost. This changed the airport infrastructure.
More strict security procedures are probably what we think most when it comes to what's changed about flying over the years. The 9/11 attacks in 2001 were the most recent major crises. And we remember it every time we take our shoes off before we enter a plane. But there were other changes as well. For instance, the SARS epidemic in the early 2000s necessitated that airline companies put vaccination requirements in place on many flights. In 1991, during the first Iraq War, oil prices were skyrocketing, impacting the cost of kerosene. The industry reacted by developing more efficient engines that used less fuel. What all of this shows us is that not only do airlines adapt when a crisis hits, they also implement changes and improvement that are permanent. In many ways, crises have bred innovation and growth. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, however, the industry faced a 90% loss in passengers. Nobody was quite so sure anymore.
COVID was something never thought. Nobody ever thought that one day a world pandemic would ground the airline industry and remove the revenues from one day to the other and put the industry on its knees. So what we are living now is really something very, very particular.
Economic recovery after the pandemic was thought to come in a V-shape, with the economy quickly bouncing back after the first wave. Sadly, we know this wasn't the case. Experts predict that the recovery will come in more of an L shape. And during the slow recovery period, customers will have different and more specific demand.
For example, massive boarding, where you stay in a crowd of 200 people. This is the so-called advanced boarding used on low-cost companies. The companies need to turn around the airplane fast, and as soon as the last passenger deplanes, the first will board without cleaning the airplane, without doing the adequate hygiene. I believe mainly on these first months or first years, maybe, people will be more demanding because you are boarding an airplane, so you touch your head on the headrest, you touch the armrest. There should be some way of hygienize those parts before the next passenger boards. And I believe this will be the way the passengers will be demanding to be more well treated and the health to be cared in a more adequate way.
It is true that more complex demands will slow the recovery. But as it turns out, a time of uncertainty can actually be a time of freedom. If there's one thing that history has taught the airline industry, it is that a crisis can be a stimulus to improve and grow.
The positive aspects are that the assets are available in the market and at lower prices. When I say assets, you can understand the airplanes to be leased on lower rates, also IT systems at lower rates. We have expert workforce available in the market because the companies that are currently existing, they are reducing capacity, they are laying off people. We have also, because of this reduction in capacity, airport slots available. It's really a good time to start an airline and enter the market with a debt-free company.
This is what reframing a crisis looks like. Using a changing, unique landscape to become more innovative, efficient, and sustainable with our business. It gives us the opportunity to critically look at the bygone status quo and go, wait a minute. Some of the things we've been doing for a really long time aren't really efficient. And sometimes it takes a huge overhaul, a crisis to see it. This is hugely inspiring, especially when it comes to innovation. How we can now leverage cutting-edge technologies to improve and create a unique and modern new experience.
You can, on an app, identify yourself, clear passport control, clear security without touching anything. The technology will help this, and this is something that is coming to stay. There are new initiatives like, for example, the toilet door on board that opens automatically with a sensor. This kind of stuff will happen, we will see, but always based on new technologies.
What all of this can mean on a leadership level is that we become more aware. We are attentive and conscious about the changing world around us, and we engage actively with it. And we also think about how we communicate.
Issue that airlines have is ways of communicating with customer. This should be an open line of communication, telling you all the time if your flight is late, what can you expect. You need to be communicating all the time, and quality communication, what is important.
The airline industry still has a long and turbulent flight ahead of it, especially since its biggest crisis is an ongoing one. The flight industry will have to keep finding ways to lessen its impact on climate and not only innovate to make flying more sustainable, but also to deal with a world where we have to fly a lot less. Looking for innovation in times of crisis means that we have to reject going back to normal. But it's the most exciting part. Emerging from a crisis with a vision to make the world a better place. Because no matter what lies ahead, we have to believe in our ideas and remain hopeful.
I believe a lot in this model that we developed. And what I always transmit to my partners that are the other founders and the team that is involved, we should keep calm and smile. So we should keep going, be attempted, adapt, have flexibility, but believe in what we believe and go for it.
That's it from in for this week. I'm Cassandra with the Argonauts, and I see you next time. If you like what you saw, make sure to subscribe and check out our other videos.